So what we're going to do today is we're going to look at a series of planets, and we're going to try to cover the series of planets by which they act in a completely pristine manner. Do not look at your charts and realize you're going to die next week. Everybody keeps looking at their chart as soon as you say something. You don't want to do that because everything is modified from the first point. The first position is clean, it's pure, it is without any shift, change, adulteration, alteration, whatnot. Just here it is. And this is how the early astrologers start reading their chart. You need to know what is the most potential danger there is. Remember, we also try to find the worst case scenario and then build up a story and go from there. Okay? Now, when we work with astrology, a lot of us like to try to find, how wonderful something is and try to stay with that. Well,
pretty good.
That is very good.
She did cartoons.
So cute.
Yes, he is. With a smile.
Here's our little guy.
Very clever.
Looking at you with a big smile.
Yeah.
Now, this is the bare bone of this little guy. This is the absolute line drawing. Now, every comic book in the world starts with a line drawing. And then they have the second guy come in, and that person inks in the picture. By inking in, what I mean is going to start giving us shadow spots. So he'll come in here and he'll fill in the eye because the eye needs to be filled in. So that's going to have to happen, you see. So now we're going to alter this particular little drawing to be something other than what we're starting with. And of course, this has got to be a little heavier because that's a shadow spot. So he comes in and he inks that. And we ink the back here, we have to ink the back of the head, we have to ink the back of the brow, because that would be a shadow spot. So all the shadow places then are inked in, so you get a line read that tells us where what is in relationship to something else. And this is what artists do. I mean, that's their job, is to be able to take this and make it into a more legible point. Next time you read a cartoon, take a look at good cartoon, take a look at the drawing, and you'll notice that one side will always have a thick, dark line, and the front side will always have a thin line. And that shows an imaginary depth. And it's, good cartoons will always do this. Some of the cheaper ones that are out today won't, because they're just getting by with schlepping things through. But each thing then is altered like this, and we start getting ourselves a little bit more of a picture. So now we can make this guy into anything we want to by simply keep going and start adding more and more to it. And as you see, we start fleshing it out, and it starts giving us another look completely. And that other look now is going to talk to us about, what this guy is actually about. Well, obviously he's going to be a parrot here after a while because, well, he's starting to look like one. And so with all of this stuff going on, we start seeing more and more of the character without having to see less and less of what it is. We're adding on to the character. Okay? So that's what we're going to do today with planets. We're going to add on the character. And a lot of times you see a lot of planets all huddled in one house. Well, there's a way to read that very simply. It's just not a bunch of planets in a house like a stellium. There's other things going on. But you can't get to that until you know the bottom line. So today I want to cover this, and I want to show you basically how my grandfather gave me astrology in the very early years of my life. I knew people died at the age of 8 years old. I knew people were molested at the age of 8 years old. I knew your pet died at the age of 8 years old. I lost a couple. I know people around you leave this planet. I knew that by then. I knew people got sick. They got chronically ill. I know people gotten beat up. there were a lot of ills on the planet, especially in our younger ages, and those of us who are pushing a lot closer to 80 than we'd like to admit. We remember World War II, and that was not a fun war. There were a lot of brutality situations that are going on, and it was so bad that they don't really bear repeating. What manifests this kind of thing? It's in the chart. They're always in the chart. But we need to be able to see the darkest moment of a chart as well as the most bright moment of the chart. And what I want to do is bring that forth today and then show you how we may modify that through other circumstances, just like I did this little guy here. So what I want to do with that then is get started with, the whole concept is that the bare bones of astrology are ugly, because I want to take you not in an area where we just look at the black and at the homogenized, correct view, politically correct view of isn't everything wonderful. I don't see a child getting hit by a truck as a transition. I see it as a bad news accident, and it could have been avoided if we knew in advance that, he's going to have a bad Saturn and his Mars transit were not a good place. You could have said, whoa, this kid shouldn't be playing in the street like you let him, because now you can talk about it. To me, that's not a transition. That's a terrible accident. And so today's homogenized views of the planets, of everything as sweetness and light, isn't. But you can modify the lousiest planets and bring them up to something. Because like I've often said, your worst planets in your chart are literally your gateways to success. Huge success, if you're willing to pass by what's holding you back or keeping you at bay. At any rate, so what I want to do today is then show you the process by which I learned astrology as a kid, because for some reason maybe this is what you guys need to look at so you can start examining a chart and altering the chart to what the chart is actually saying. And so I thought this is what we would do. All right, anybody remember the Christmas story, the Christmas Carol?
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay. Do you remember Father Christmas? You remember the image they showed on screen for Father Christmas? What was that image?
He was all decked out in royal robes and like a king.
Royal robes, a kingly crown, abundance of everything thrown around him, wasn't it? Just, there was so much stuff. Christmas trees and Christmas ornaments and gifts and packages and presents and food and fruit and nuts and candy and happy and smiling. Everything was going on. Well, guess what? When we look at the glyph of Jupiter, that's exactly what we see. It is Father Christmas. It is your rich uncle doting all over you. It is your sugar daddies or sugar mummies, if you have either one. This is the symbol of absolute gift. It is the best, most wonderful, everything is beautiful symbol. That's what that means. No alteration. Pristine. That's what it means, in a pristine fashion. Direct from heaven. It is Santa Claus, giving you everything and anything you want in any way you can possibly get it without any restriction. It gives you good health, it gives you benefits, it protects you in all forms of the existence of that glyph. Wherever you see it in the chart, that's where you're going to get this particular situation coming to you. Just the planet. No sign, no house. It just means abundanza. There's not much more you could add for gimme. All right? That's what this means. To the lesser side of that, we have a little girl who doesn't pick her nose as a child. Venus is the lesser part of this. Where Jupiter is the abundanza and gives you everything, Venus is the thing that every stands for. So it's all the gifts, it's all the individual fruit pieces, it's all the things that are coming to you, it's the jewelry, it's the wonderful clothes, it's the being fitted and being formed, and everything you would love to have. Makes you warm, makes you comfortable, it makes you happy. That's what that symbol means. No alteration. Simply, it's the gifts that come to you that make you happy. Anywhere that is in the chart, that's what it means, without any alteration. That's the first start. It means just simply that. Okay? The next in line, of course, are the other end of this. And when we look at the other end, we like to give these guys a capital B because they're the benefits. We do have what they call the malefics. And the first malefic, of course, is Saturn, the heavy-duty dude. Saturn steals, it takes, it condenses, it denies, it will not give you a thing. It does not want any success given to you whatsoever. It is the absolute antithesis of what Jupiter is. Absolute. It takes. It does not give anything. It denies. It will not give anything. Saturn is simply that. It won't take you anywhere. It won't give you anything. And it takes joy in what you do not get. Any deprivation is the joy of Saturn. That's why in the 12th house imprisonment, Saturn is in its joy. You're in prison. You can't do anything. You can't go anywhere, and that makes it perfectly happy. Okay? That's why it's joy there. Okay. The second ugly dude out of the trio becomes now a quadruplet is the planet Mars. It too is a malefic. It is malicious in this fashion. Whatever you have will be taken. Saturn won't even give it to you. But if you do happen to have something, Mars will take it. It just wants it. It's yours. It will take it by force. It will beat you up to get it. It will do everything it can possibly can to get what you have from you. That's the end of Mars. It has no joy, no happiness at all to it. It isn't wonderful activity. It's the big guy coming in filled with armor, taking over the town, no prisoners. Mars is just as ugly as Saturn in its activity. As Saturn denies, Mars will take. No chance of any kind of wonderfulness about Mars. It's an ugly, ugly planet all by itself. So these two guys are very much malefic. These two guys are very much benefit. Is there any questions about these two positions so far? Good, we got that. The next thing that happens is, in the chart, there's the sun. Now the sun will always stand for somebody in your life that is powerful, most powerful. It is the power of the chart. After all, everything revolves around the sun. So therefore, the power of the sun shows itself by a position of power in the chart. Wherever the sun is in the chart, you know somebody, that place that is very, very powerful. That's what that means. That is the king, that is the governor, that is the ruler of all. This is why when you see it sitting in Leo, people are so blown out of their proportions sometimes. That's exactly what the sun is. The sun is all about power. Achieving power, keeping power, being power. It is then, therefore, that power is your vitality. So on an individual basis, it's your vitality. The moon is a reflection of that vitality, but it's a colder side of it. The moon is more on the emotions. It's how you feel when you don't feel the power. It's that illness feeling when you know something's going wrong. You get that little pit thing in your stomach that goes, uh-oh, this ain't good, we're going to break up. So that kind of a situation. So the moon then gives us the emotional quality of what it is we're dealing with, but based on power or your ego. I want a candy bar. You can't have a candy bar, but I want a candy bar. And if you ever watch a kid talking to mom about selling the idea that it wants a candy bar, you're watching the moon in action. The moon in your chart is the greedy point. It is a space there where you want all you can get with the moon. You need all of it. You want all of it. You have to have all of it. You don't have it, but that's what you want. So the moon then represents the greed spot. This is what you really try to acquire in your life. So you'll be emotionally secured or pleased. So the moon then represents that. The last but dudes in the middle is, of course, Mercury. Mercury has no true set value. All alone, peregrine, somewhere outside of the whole chart, it will tend to lean toward the intellect. Tend, it's a tendency towards that. Try to represent who I are with the world and how do I read this. The other side of it is that whatever planet Mercury is associating with at the time, it will take that quality as its own. It's a perfect mirrored mimic. So here's your parrot. So if Mercury's with Saturn, you're going to find people who are very somber and very stingy and very Scrooge-like, as in our story, The Christmas Carol. If you find Mercury with Mars, you're going to find people who are willing to exacerbate everything you want to do. They'll be the ones that will always raise their hand and question you in a negative way, rather than try to give you a positive circumstance. They're the ones who want to argue the point. Yeah, but I know, I studied that, but that's not how it is. Oh no, all of this is illusion, so how can you say that that's the truth? Yeah, well, in the grander scheme, you're right, but in the lower scheme, you can see that Mercury-Mars is very combative, and that's exactly what it wants to do in its pristine nature. With Jupiter, it has a tendency to overdo it. It'll overdo all it can, especially in the fact that the person you meet is loquacious. They will really talk your ear off. With Venus, of course, you'll see artists. You'll see people who are very much involved in the artistic, feel-good concept of drawing pictures so everybody's happy kind of a situation. Mercury associated with the Sun is always associated with the Sun. Simply by being in the same sign, it shows that that person has that kind of power behind their words. With the Moon, it shows they can be somewhat melancholy and changeable. Generally, they say that the Moon and Mercury make a good memory concept. Maybe not, because the Moon is too changeable. It wants to keep shifting, and so does Mercury. So between the two of them, you're seeing a dance in the cosmos that are flitting all over the place, like a butterfly in a garden. So the two of them together aren't much of a good combination. It shows instability in the chart. This, then, is the basic ground rule of these planets. This is it. It's a bottom line. Now, if the planet Jupiter in the chart, what would you do if you had your choice of what houses would you put Jupiter in? Now you're getting it. Because now we want to see where we can take the most beneficial planet and where can we have it in the chart that tells us how wonderful life could be if we were just living the life of Jupiter. We would be Santa Claus. We'd be making toys for every little boy and girl throughout the world and charging the parents for it. Which is always a good thing to do, because that's what Santa Clauses do. They're good for that. So out of the circumstances, what we take Jupiter, if we put it in the first house, what is it going to do to the personality? It's going to blow us out, isn't it? It's going to add and add and add and add, so the person can't get enough cake or goodies or whatnots and whereabouts. So Jupiter in the first house can be somewhat dangerous for overweight and diabetes. All right? So Jupiter in the first house was saying, no, I don't think so. I don't think that would work good. Jupiter in the second house, well, that's a little better. I want all the things I can have in life. So I certainly would like my Jupiter in the second house, and I would like it to be operative so I can get everything I really want in my life. Because Jupiter, after all, in the house of material, I want the biggest house, the biggest car, the biggest bank account. I want the biggest riches, most better I can possibly get. I want to marry Santa Claus. Hey, right. You want the chimney with Santa Claus? Doesn't matter about the chimney, but the rest of it I certainly want. I want all the gifts. And how many times I heard a woman say, I want to marry a man who is generous. That's the first call, generous. Then he can be good looking. But generous is usually the first point. So when you do charts, you always want to see if she's going to get a generous guy in her life. And you can see this in people's charts. There's an attitude about Jupiter that is really straightforward. In the third house, well, they're going to live in a pretty big neighborhood, wouldn't they? The routines would be overwhelming, do too much to do, too many letters to write. My God, everything in the third house that Jupiter has to stand for would be an overwhelming circumstance. We would be stuck with too much to do for the 24-hour period that we do. So we'd have to invent a 48-hour day. And that's what that would do. And once you get the 48-hour day in operation, guess what? You'd need a 72-hour day. So that's how that would work. Fourth house, yeah, I like Jupiter in the fourth house. It gives good counsel. Fourth house Jupiter is going to tell us what? Well, it's really very well placed here because well, a large family would teach us a lot of things, how to interact with our family, the kind of information that would come from the father. It would be filled with wonderful stories, religious attitudes, a concept of that there is something bigger than you. Learn about that, get in cooperation with it. Beautiful place for Jupiter, 4th house. 5th house, well, how much fun can you have? Oh God, there ain't enough fun. There ain't enough roller coasters, there ain't enough bumper cars, there ain't enough anything going on, there ain't enough parties. I need Jupiter 5 for all of that stuff because that's a good place for that. It also gives a lot of kids. Hey, I love children, I need 30. Well, good for you. Yes. Jupiter in the 6th. Well, we go, uh-oh. But no, it's not an uh-oh because what it's going to do, it's going to protect you from your slings and arrows of life. It's protective here now. Now, the basic concepts of protection in the 6th is that if somebody's after you, chances are that they'll be where you were when they're looking for you. That's the kind of the thing that will be. And it will guard against certain circumstances. You will not get cheated by the local mechanic. You'll find somebody who really likes you and do the right thing by you. Jupiter in the 6th will protect you there. Jupiter in the 7th, well, yeah, you want somebody who will help you in every way they can. You want somebody who will give you what it is you want. You want your life to be fulfilled through the eyes of another, and you want them to totally adore you at all times. Well, I mean, I do. I don't know about you guys. But at any rate, also says that Jupiter in the 7th could be an awfully powerful enemy. So if somebody comes after you in the 7th who's Jupiter, trust me, they may be benevolent, but they better have some more benevolent planets in their line of sight so they won't take everything you own. Because Jupiter 7th will, if they can. They are unlimited in supply and energy to take whatever it is they need to win if they are an enemy. 8th house, simple. Peaceful death. Peaceful death. Don't need to go any further than that. Jupiter in the 8th house guarantees a peaceful death. Because, well, you're going to be welcomed in the arms of your Savior, whatever that is, and you walk in like, remember Steve Jobs, his last words?
Wow.
It was, oh. Wow.
Ooh, cool.
That's a way to leave.
That is cool.
So, but that's exactly what he was saying when he went out. So 8th house is really a very peaceful demise. And generally, if you survive somebody, you'll get some kind of inheritance with that because, well, it's matters of the dead. So that kind of works. The IRS is after you. Sometimes they will overlook the little discrepancies. And this is what you always pay us and get out of here. Not always, but if you have Jupiter there, they might. I've met a few IRS agents that actually had a half a heart. They ate their own other half, but they had a half left. So that's what they did with that. Jupiter in the 9th is what? Well, hey, let's go all over the world. Let's be a world traveler. Let's learn about world gods. Let's learn about all we can. What about great universities? I need to go to the best university there is in the world. I need to be in charge of my wonderful life that way. I need to be able to foresee. I need to be able to be smart and absolutely together with everything I need to know in life. Comes through the 9th house. I will be protected. God is with me. Great if you want to start a war. Jupiter in the 10th house, yes, it promises high honors. It promises a great deal of honor. It promises to be recognized as a person who is willing and able to help and achieve in everything they do. That's the 11th, not 10th house. Jupiter in the 11th house, well, how many rich friends do you want in your life? Me, I want them all. There's nothing like a rich friend, because when you say, well, I can't afford to go, come on, I need your company, I'll pay for it. That's a rich friend. But the true friendship is, I've got money, you've got a car. I'll buy the gas, you drive. That's a good friendship, because that's an interdependent, that's an interplay on friendships where you guys are really put it together. Very nice to have that. So in the 11th house, always a favorable place, because the 11th house is always good. It's good for getting bonuses on time. It's good for finding people who are willing to hire you at a higher rate of pay because for some reason you look right. Jupiter here is beautiful. Just a beautiful place to have Jupiter. 12th house, the best thing I can say about Jupiter 12th is chances are bad news items won't hit you. You won't have chronic illnesses that last forever. Any illnesses you get will be quickly healed. You're protected with Jupiter. You've often heard that Jupiter in the 12th house is like a guardian angel. Well, that's what it means. Any kind of misfortune that's heading your way will probably be thwarted somehow. Jean-Baptiste Marin had Jupiter in the 12th, and he had a lot of enemies as an astrologer. And he was captured, I think, 11 times. He was threatened to be shot as a in captivity 9 times, shot at a few times, but he always managed to get out and away because he had Jupiter in the 12th house. So he worked very well with that. The same thing can be said with Venus. Venus in the first house, attractive people. Any kind of Venus in the first, they're going to be attractive, they're going to be artistic, they're going to be soft, there are going to be things about them you're just going to like. No matter what they look like, but they still will look pretty decent because Venus says, look at me, I'm pretty. Second house, nice, comfortable, it's easy. That's an easy way to live, Venus in the second house. It just makes sense there because it works well there. Third house, speak softly, carry a big stick. But basically, this person will probably be able to charm the teeth out of a snake. Fourth house, nice home, nice bringing up, friendly atmosphere. Has a family that really, they all like one another. All right? Fifth house, well, again, how much fun can you have? But this kind of fun may go a little bit more in the erudition. It may go in reading, drawing, sewing, going to the movies a lot, good dates, good fun. Wonderful kids, Venus there. Venus in the 6th will somehow protect from the major illnesses. Minor illnesses probably will be not even existent here. Repairs and stuff like that that have to be fixed in the 6th, generally minor. Most people can drive into a service station and the guy goes, oh, look, it's just a loose wire. Put the wire together, the guy gets to drive off. Not Rodney Dangerfield. He of course, drives in there and says, this car can't move tonight. Never heard that routine, but it's brilliant. And that's what he's talking about.
No respect.
7th, of course, you got a beautiful partner, a rich partner, someone who has at least the wherewithal to help you get ahead in life, and usually a harmonious partner. Rarely will you be sued by Venus because they're too happy. They don't care about the rest of that. Venus in the 8th house, again, peaceful death and sometimes a legacy. Not a big legacy, but it's usually like the people who work in hospice who take care of a person who leaves them a small something as a remembrance after they pass on. Not a lot of money. A couple of $1,000, $5,000, $10,000 at most, maybe what they might see out of it. Jupiter, well, they might give them an estate like that cat got all those millions. But the Venus, 9th house Venus is a love of college, a perpetual student, a love of travel, a love of beauty, a love of all things that fall into place along these lines. Venus in the 10th, excellent for your career, because if you're an artist or seek to be some kind of an artist, you will be able to work with that. A diplomat at all costs will get you your 10th house activities at an easy basis. Diplomacy usually falls in place here, as it does in the 7th. 11th house, wonderful friends, giving friends, love to party friends, because Venus, of course, is the social side of ourselves. So there lies a good place. Venus in the 12th will make the best out of the worst situation. So that's why it's in its joy and exaltation in Pisces in the 12th house, because of the fact, even in prison, you'll make a friend and get by that way. If it's a little small kid and you lock it in the closet for punishment, it'll come up with an imaginary friend in 5 minutes. Whereas we would go nuts in 3. They'll have a little friend they can talk to in the closet. The next time you're going to punish them in the closet, you look forward to it. Oh, good, I can go see Harry. Who the hell's Harry? My friend. Harry, where's Harry live? In the closet. Gee, all right, that's good. So that's how that looks at that, you see. Saturn in the 1st house is burdensome. It will not allow you to have any freedom. Most people with Saturn in the 1st house end up raising the family, taking care of their mother, taking care of their father, taking care of their brothers, their sisters. They're the mother, the young mother of a situation. Pardon me. So Saturn in the 1st does not usually give a good vibe. And when you meet these people, there's something about them you just don't like. They don't know why. You just don't like them. I don't know. Maybe you're a Saturn Scrooge guy. Saturn in the 2nd house, no money. you get nothing. You have to work and work and work to scrape by because you need to struggle to keep it going. So Saturn in the second will just cripple you if you let it. Third house Saturn, hate to go out. Recluse is really a good point for this. People who have Saturn in the third house generally move into neighborhoods that are the worst. They can't seem to find a neighborhood that's suitable. I had a client call me up one time, he's going to move to a place. They really liked the house, the cost, everything was right. But when I looked at Saturn in the third house, I said, don't move there. Well, why? I love the place. It's beautiful. I said, yeah, the neighborhood sucks. Yeah, it is a little run down. I know that. But I know they're talking about gentrifying it and they're going to put this together. And then, so she talked herself into buying the house there. Well, she did buy the house there, and thank God that I told her not to, because there's no way she's going to come back on me on this one. When she moved in, she found out that a neighbor on each side, which, come on, each side, were into building cars
Oh,
and motorcycles. And they liked doing it after work. So at noon at night, you'd hear all that while. You'd hear this noise going on up the street. The person who lived across the way from her had a family that was absolutely obnoxious. The kids climbed on everything, always going in her yard, digging up her flowers so they could take the flowers home to mom. It was just a wonderful place not to be. She sold the place after a while, but that was Saturn in the third house. It just denies you anything. Saturn in the fourth house is a penurious house now. You're not going to get much information from the family. Your father will probably don't give a shit about you. You know, anything that you want to do, and you're always on restriction. You can't go here, you can't go there. As a matter of fact, there's a lock on your bedroom door, so you make sure that you don't break curfew at night. You know, I had one of those as a client, Saturn fourth. I said, Jesus, how'd you grow up? She goes, I don't believe this, but my teenage years, I was locked in my bedroom. I said, locked? Yeah, my dad would put me in the bedroom at 10 o'clock and I could hear that door close and there was an outside bolt. Could she get out the window? No, we lived in the second story and there was a half bar system there. She was a prisoner in her own home until she got out of there. And they wonder why the kids run away. Saturn in the fifth, no fun. No fun. You're denied any kind of fun. Children will be denied. People who have Saturn in the fifth house a lot of times will have a stillborn birth, or they will lose a child sometime during their lifetime. Saturn in the fifth is not good, as is Mars, the same thing. Sometimes you'll lose your children while you're carrying them, or sometime during the life. Saturn in the sixth is good for chronic illnesses. It's good for always having to fix or repair things and having the person who fixes or repairs them take full advantage of you and not even do a good job. Shoddy workmanship. So people you hire there probably won't do the job well at all. So now you got to come out. Best way to get around that is have somebody else hire the people, I would think. But that's that. Saturn in the seventh denies a good marriage. It usually gives a marriage to somebody who is mean, does not want you to have anything, or will get ill on you, so you have to take care of them and have to spend your life as practically chained to the partner and helping them and working with them and you know, trying to get them out of whatever the problem might be. And it could be a number of problems, but Saturn in the seventh does not promise a happy marriage. It promises one by which you need to struggle through. And if you're a dedicated, loyal person, you will. That's what you do. Because you say, well, for better or for worse. You know. But most Saturn marriages are struggling. They do. Saturn in the eighth, usually a violent death. Sometimes a lingering illness that lasts and lasts and lasts and finally takes the person away. Saturn in the ninth is the same thing. Lack of education, problems traveling, circumstances by which you're denied any kind of righteous movement. Law will not work on your side. Just seems to be, goes against you. No matter what you seem to do with Saturn 9, it just doesn't work for you. You can go to college, and when you graduate, the field you graduated in, they just happen to stop that field altogether. So now it doesn't even exist for you. So you go back to college and get another degree, and when you get out of that one, they find that's all filled up now, and you know, it's a frozen field. So that's kind of the thing you'll see there. And I know several kids that have that and are going through that very thing. Graduate from college for what? You know, so they can live in the street. So that's Saturn. Saturn in the 10th generally denies honors. It's inimical to honor. And so people that Saturn in the 10th house rarely achieve what they want to achieve. They'll get to a position, but they usually don't get to a position of anything that is of any real value to them. They get to be manager of the department, maybe, as their highest level of what they do. And of course, we all know that if you're a manager of a business, that means you get to clean the toilets when the janitor won't, because you want to keep your managerial job. You probably have people who don't like you that you have to override, things about that. You might lose your job, you might stay with a job for 19 years and 11 months to find out before you get your retirement you just got fired. Saturn is an ugly place in the 10th. Saturn in the 11th, no friends, and if you do have any, they want all they can take from you. So you probably find them coming around at night saying, "Hi, how are you?" while they peruse the room to see what you have of interest or value, and work with you from there. Saturn in the 12th, chronic illness. Usually there's an illness here that lasts and lasts and lasts. Jean-Baptiste Marin had Saturn in the 12th. He was constantly sick. He was raised as a sick child, and most of us have Saturn in the 12th. We're raised as sickly children. We're growing up with every disease imaginable to man. As we get older, of course, thank God we outgrow this, and all those antibodies kind of hang with us. But, you know, if you had a good parent, then they would recognize that lousy Saturn and fortify it somehow, so you get all the good nutrients. You get your milk drinks, your whey drinks, and everything else you have to get. Mars just takes things. So in the first house, generally you'll find this person is very aggressive, will not allow you to do much. Second house, your money goes. It just will not hang with you. It just can't seem to save a dang dime to get by. Third house, constantly have to move, constantly on the go. You get a job, but the cost of getting there is just prohibitive. It's just like craziness here. Often mad people, third house Mars, they have things that they're exacerbated all the time. Fourth house Mars, lousy family, always one that's argumentative. Circumstances going on that just are awful. Fifth house Mars, daredevil fun. Kind of things that, you know, you want to jump off a cliff with a broken parachute to see what happens. That kind of a situation. Mars in the fifth is not good for children. You'll generally lose one. Often the firstborn, not always, but generally Mars and Saturn fifth is not good for children. If they do live through that ordeal, they turn out to be pretty rotten kids. You got to put up with a lot of work with that. Mars in the sixth, well, things are always breaking. No matter what you buy, you have to take it back. No matter what you fix, you have to take it back. Mars is not good here. It gives for dry coughs sometimes too. You get a cough that just won't leave because it's the illness house as well. Mars in the seventh speaks for itself. You're going to find a lot of people wanting to take you to court. You're going to find the person that you're interested in after you get to know them are mean. They like to just be mean people. They're mean-spirited, like to argue, like to create problems, and do all the kind of things that you just don't want from a partner. Mars in the eighth usually means a violent death. Shot, stabbed, run over, public death often, especially with the sun there. Mars in the ninth is wanderlust. Usually you find either hobos. They can't seem to settle down, so they need to get and go and see what's on the other side. It's just a wanderlust. They're wonderful truck drivers. They're never around. So that would work with that line. Mars in the 10th is kind of a nice place for it because you're willing to fight, scrap, and scrape for everything you want to do in your life as an achievement. You're willing to beat up anybody in your way. And this is when you find people in show business who will step on anyone to get where they need to be. So they'll sell it short. Mars in the 11th are friends who are generally in the military or associated with the military. Mars in the 10th could be good for the military because Mars, of course, is about force, and military certainly works that. So sometimes you see somebody with Mars in the 6th or the 10th house are interested in police work, were or will be a cop, and that sort of thing, or have joined the service and loved it and stayed in for life. That's the kind of situation it is. So Mars in the 11th would show that kind of a thing. Hardcore, hard-nosed friends that just live by the military rule, you might say. Mars in the 12th, not too hot. It tends to throw the people in jail somehow. Not necessarily a physical jail, but most often they will see the other side of bars in their life and take a look and see what that's about, even if they're just captured for a little bit for whatever they're captured for, and they run with it. So Mars in the 12th would show that kind of a thing. It would exacerbate the situation and go from there. These are then the circumstances by which these planets are in. When you look at a chart, you simply read the pristine point. That is it. If you look at something like Saturn in the 9th, you go, oh my God, she's in a plan to go abroad. Well, it's time to move to Europe. I don't think I would. But because wherever you go, your natal chart will always, always, always reign supreme, no matter where you go. You change locations and everything, the natal chart still reigns supreme. Even though you shifted the houses, it still reigns supreme. That doesn't mean much. So, through the houses you can see different circumstances that are going on with just these others and the goodsies. The sun and the moon in those houses are going to do the same kind of concept that we just talked about. Sun in the first house, people are powerful, or they feel powerful, or they become overbearing with you. They step in your presence. And no matter how gracious they want to be, they just are not liked because they seem to be overbearing. I have, excuse me, I have two airline stewards who I do charts for. Both are Leo with the sun in the first angle. And they're the sweetest people, but my God, they're heavy. And I don't know what it is about them that's so heavy. But, you know, they want to talk about real things. They want to get into the life and what's going on. And when they talk to their kids, news for you, the kids don't even like them. These people are hard to like because that overbearing sun is going to give you a sunburn after you know them for 2 or 3 hours. Sun in the second targets money, targets wealth, and that's where your vitality is. So the more you own, the stronger you feel. Same thing with sun in the third. The more you have to say, the more you feel you're stronger. That is your vitality point. Sun in the third is generally good for writing because it also reflects the 9th house, which is also good for that. Sun in the fourth is a great family because you get all kinds of great information. It's brilliant stuff. It's the kind of information by which you can live and work with and use these principles throughout your life. Same thing with the moon. The moon there does the same kind of circumstance for you, only on the emotional level. Sun in the fifth, of course, is all about fun, games, and a good time. Happy people love it. They love to go out, love parties, all about what the fifth house is. Sun in the sixth generally is protective of chronic diseases and chronic illnesses. And usually the person who hires somebody will always hire somebody to work for them in a good way, not necessarily an evil way, but a good way, because the sun here wants to shine good. Sun in the seventh generally is a place where the person who has that will give their vitality onto someone else and have them define who they are. That seventh house can become very powerful in that way. It also makes extremely powerful enemies because, let's face it, if the sun is the king and the queen and the governor of the state, if they come after you, they win. They're very powerful enemies. So you need to be careful of the sun in the seventh. Sun in the eighth, of course, you're looking for other people's finances and how you can get your hands in their pile. And that's generally where that goes. A weak sun here usually is significant of a public death. With the sun, you usually see people who get injured or hurt, it's made public. And of course, this was very true during the 16th, 17th centuries because people who were condemned to death were done so in a public square. Hey, let's hang this guy, let's behead this guy, whatever. Actually, one guy, I forget what his name was, he was a prince or something, acted badly, and the king was very benevolent. He gave him a private execution. So he was executed in the back courtyard, not in front of everybody. That was considered mercy. Sun in the eighth. Sun in the ninth loves to travel, loves to learn. How can I brighten my whole life? Vitality comes from knowledge. The more I know, the more powerful I am. 10th house is, again, the place of the king. Most notable people will have sun in the 10th house or a relationship to the sun somehow related to the 10th house, either by rulership or after sitting there. But sun in the 10th is all about being a person of honor. And so you see that. Sun in the 11th will do that same kind of thing. It gives very powerful friends who want to give you very wonderful gifts and love you, they care for you. That person will always be chosen out of a crowd to be given something. I've seen this time and time again, where somebody is chosen out of the crowd to do something. And I'll walk up and I'll say, do you mind telling me what time you were born? And I think it was between 10 and 11 in the morning. I don't even care what sign they are, I just realize sun's in the 11th house. And a sun in the 12th generally is bad news. It weakens the sun. Chronic illness comes to mind, imprisonment can come to mind. But if you work in a hospital and deal with prisons that way, where you're in charge of it, that's a different story. You're still in that environment, but it's more of the positive side of it. But it can be very negative. One year at the police graduation, I used to be a member of the Long Beach Police Officers Association. And so they were throwing a graduation for these people. And when we went in, I bought 10 tickets, raffle tickets, door prize tickets. I bought 10 of them. Everybody else was buying gobs and gobs and gobs of tickets. Well, when the time came for the raffle, I swear to you, I won 9 of those prizes. 9 of them. I only had 10 tickets. I only missed one. Every time they called a ticket, it got to the point where the whole assembly of police officers would all turn and look at me. Get his license number. So after the 3rd prize I won, what I would do is I would go up and I'd say, let me pull one, and I'd pull another prize and I'd call a different winner. And that way I would give that prize out to the other person. And then the other 2 prizes, I didn't want, somebody offered to buy them, and I said, $2. And give them $2 for the prize and give it to them. One was like a fanny pack, and stuff. 9 of them. So I asked the woman what her birthday was, and she gave it to me, and I went home and I did the chart. And here's the funniest thing. She had Jupiter, 0 degrees Leo, where my sun is, in the 11th house. So we just clicked that day, and I think a Venus transit was there or something like that. But it all fell together, and I won 9 of the 10 prizes that were given out that day. And I only bought 10 tickets.
Amazing.
It is. That's one of the most amazing things, but it just
Really?
gelled that way. The moon does the same thing in the houses. It's the greedy spot. So wherever the moon is where you're most greedy. If it's in the 1st house, you're greedy for attention for yourself. 2nd house, you're greedy for more. 3rd house, you're greedy for attention. You want to be able to give your opinion. You don't care about theirs. You want yours opinion. 4th house, you're the family. You should be consulted no matter how old you are. That should be part and parcel of it. 5th house, there's no such thing as enough fun. 6th house, of course, you're greedy for working with people, trying to show people how you can help them, and because you know everything. You'll usually find moon in the 6th house. People will be health nuts, and they'll give you all this wonderful advice. Oh, I got this such and such. Oh, really? Well, you know what you got to do here online and get this, and then after you get that, this will also help. And so it goes from there. Moon in the 7th is a partner who reflects your own greed, so the 2 of you will have a good time trying to outdo the other as far as who gets what throughout life. The 8th house will only make you mad if you're part and parcel of an inheritance, because, well, hey, you should have gotten it off. You should have been the person who was, what do they call them, where they distribute everything for the other guy? Gone, come on.
Executor?
The executor, thank you very much. You should have been the executor here. How come they let him do that kind of a thing? So the moon wants that too. 9th house, the moon wants to go everywhere, learn everything, know everything, and if they don't, they'll pretend like they do, because that's what the moon there is all about. Moon in the 10th house is a person who, again, will climb to success any way they can, because it's very important that they are in emotional control. 11th house, they'll rule over their friends. Generally, unless you have other weakened situation, their friends will rule over them, one of the 2. But one way or the other, that moon in the 11th is greedy for friends, and they will take any kind of friend, regardless of the level of life. They just need people around them. 12th house moon is one that you just emotionally sometimes shoot yourself in the foot. Cry at the wrong time, say the wrong thing, ask for the wrong thing at the wrong time, and be overly demanding about something that really you shouldn't be overly demanding at all. It's 12th house, you get what you get. Mercury, in association with all of these, will always associate the meaning of the circumstance by which it is associated. So what each house means in and of itself, Mercury will pick up on that banner. So the first house is the I, Me, Mine Club. What about money, communication, the homes, field, whatever it is, whatever that place Mercury is, it will pick up with all of that energy. So when we look at these things, we know for certain that we don't want Jupiter in the wrong houses. First house, we don't want to be too fat. We certainly don't want it in a house that will harm us. Third house is overwhelming. The rest of the houses might work. Sixth house will protect us. 12th house protect us. 8th house is easy for dying. So those might be okay. So Jupiter pretty much, as you can see, reigns most of the chart. It's happy in most of the chart areas. And even if it's associated with by sign, it will also take on that kind of an element. So this then is basically what the bottom line of these planets are all about. And when you look at a chart, that is the first thing you want to evaluate. How crappy is my chart? Now we start altering it and make it a little bit better, just like we did that little bird. Now we've got the bare bones, we know what we're looking for. Now, what happens after this is the magic, called the dignities. And this is why you're learning the dignities. Because once you know that Jupiter is Santa Claus with more gifts than you'll ever need in your life, if we place that Santa Claus in a great place, it will be a great place. It will give you great things. So if I put Jupiter in Sagittarius, the problem is sometimes you don't get out of it. Remember the planet in its own sign? We usually try to retain. So what it does with this then, it becomes a retained concept. So in Pisces and in Sagittarius, it would always give us a retainer. God, it would be nice if. So it wants to reach out, it would like to have it. Unless there's a trine or a sextile to that, it's just a wish. You need to put something together to make that happen. Any planet in its own sign does not generally leave that sign unless it has an aspect to it. So each sign then will modify this. Jupiter in the 10th house, marvelous place. Get all these awards and all these honors and everything else until you find out that it's in Capricorn. Well, not so much now. And now Jupiter in Capricorn gives you what?
Saturn.
It has Saturn influence, and therefore it's going to be inimicable, bad for that kind of a situation, because Saturn does not want you to have anything. Neither does Capricorn, unless you are so organized that it can't help it. It can't help it. It's got to give you something for the organization ability. See, so Jupiter in the 10th looks like it's really a high-end promise, which it is, but the minute you put it in Capricorn, it diminishes that promise. It allows you to raise to a certain level, but no more. Parentage, well, if it's your mom, you're not going to get much. You're not going to get much information because, well, it's contained. It's up there. It's going to stay with itself and do what it needs to do. You see? If I put it up there in Cancer, though, oh my God, now it's in its exaltation. So if I put Jupiter in Cancer, now you've got every honor in town. People are going to love you, your business is going to flourish, everything's going to happen right for you. Even if it's squared, it's going to come your way. Remember that chart we did last week with the lily? The guy had Jupiter in the 10th house right on there. And boy, he was getting all the goodies. Even his wife was giving him the goodies. So all the stuff went to him with that wonderful Jupiter in the 10th house. Oh, there was other things, naturally. So by sign placement, we also have a situation that modifies this pristine nature of the planets. And it becomes very important to recognize the dignities. This is why I constantly push the dignities, because they are literally the dictionary of the planetary placement. Essential dignity is when it's in a sign. Accidental dignity is when it's in a house. So, if Jupiter is in Virgo, it doesn't mean you're going to lose everything, but it does mean you have to work for what you get. You have to go after it a little bit more than normal.
Would you repeat that phrase? You just said
Jupiter
essential dignity, and accidental dignity.
Jupiter in its signs, all the signs, are called essential dignities.
Okay.
In the houses, they're referred to as accidental dignity. Okay? You got it? Okay. So if I take Jupiter in my hand here and rotate it around these charts, that is by accidental dignity. wherever it might land in any one of these positions. So the minute I place it in a sign, it becomes an essential dignity. It's in its fall, it's in its exaltation, it's in its own sign, it's missing, whatever it might be. It's doing something.
So
That's
if-
telling us essentially what the power is about that planet.
Yeah, is the accidental dignity then has to do with the joy? The
It can reflect that joy, absolutely, because that's what these houses are all about. Excuse me.
Then it means, like, for example, Jupiter in Virgo is in its fall. Meaning if Jupiter is in the 6th house, then it will be the accidental fall.
And it's accidentally weak because the 6th house is a weak house. See, 3, 6, 9, 12th houses are cadent houses. They're weak houses. So if I had Jupiter in Virgo in the 6th, it's weak. That means you're probably going to step out and try to help everybody you know, to show how wonderful you are, at least to yourself, and work with it that way. However, if I can trine that Jupiter with Sun or Venus, it takes that debility and lifts it up to a better level. So it changes things. This is why we need to know the dignities. So if I have Jupiter in the 6th house Virgo, that gives us a weak Jupiter. You'll get things, but not big things. You'll get some graces. You probably won't get as sick. You'll get sick, but you won't get as sick as it could have been. You might nip things in the bud. The car might have a rattle. You bring it in, the guy would fix it for you and be reasonable with you. But you still have a car that rattled because you got to get fixed. These are the things. But if you have a nice trine to the 10th house, or if you have a nice trine to the 2nd house, that mitigates this. Now the pristine value of that planet has now shifted to a new level. Now we're starting to flesh it out, and we're starting to add color to our cartoon. And this is what you do. You start with the worst and you bring it on up, or you start with the best and drop it on back if you have to. So you look at Jupiter in the 6th, right off the bat, you go, well, it's a weak Jupiter, but it gives benefit here because it will protect you from being harmed. So if I'm going to step out in front of a truck, somebody will probably grab me just in time and say, oh, yeah, truck, yeah. Or if you have something broken, you might find the right person to fix it. And they may do it for free. You know, they may be that Rodney Dangerfield where they just walk in as a loose wire. Click, okay, you're on your way, except for Rodney Dangerfield. This car is not leaving the lot tonight. That was Jupiter in its birthplace. So out of the circumstances then, these benefits are benefits in their pure states. They become slight benefits, small b benefits, and there's a small m malefic when they are placed in areas where they aren't as helpful. Now you have to remember that we always consider, as astrologers, the planets are helpmates. They are doing something for us. And every planet acts through the house it's in. And it will act through the house it's in by the level of its dignity by sign. But it will always act. It will act in accordance to that sign because it always loves the sign. The planet loves the sign it's in. Clay feet and all. It just does not want to look down. So it's really the most wonderful thing. So we take the pristine nature of the planets, we look at those first, and then we find the worst situation, and then we start altering it and bring it up. Okay, well, it's a great Saturn. My God, look at it. It's in its own sign, and it's really working well here. So this is not a bad Saturn after all. It could be a very good Saturn. It could be an organized Saturn. It could be a very wonderful place. So when you see one planet in a house and sign, you alter this by its essential and accidental dignity. You bring it up or you drop it back. Aspects are the fourth thing you look at, and they help. Aspects help. That's what they are. They're helpmates. Remember the story of the conjunction, you want the cake? Well, that's how this works. They help you. And so any aspect you see, even if it's an opposition, is some kind of help, although you wouldn't think so. It tells you what to avoid, if nothing else. So that's how that works. Is there any questions about what we just covered? This will be on video, by the way, so you can watch the whole thing.
And I presume this is natal and horary both.
This is it, down, bottom line, what they mean, even in Hindu astrology. Not Chinese, but basically close. Okay? Any questions? This is the jumping off spot. And I always look at a chart and look how horrible something is, and then try to fix it to a better place. That's what my grandfather taught me. It might be a French way. I guess if I was Spanish, maybe it was the other way. How great is it? Oh my God, the walls need painting. I don't know.
So what do you have? 4 steps you basically look at?
Basically, 4 steps.
So,
4 steps.
You have the pristine planet by its sole meaning. Now we're going to put it in accidental or essential dignity by sign, and then we're going to see what aspects bring that up.
yeah, that's 3.
Essential and accidental dignity.
Oh, essential, okay.
It works in that way.
Accidental.
And then by aspects, what will it give us? Okay. Yes?
It was real important that we got. So anyway, 1, 2, and 3 was pristine dignities. That's not what's going to ask.
Aspect.
Aspect, and this 3?
Yeah, there's 4, but it's in the synthesis.
Accidental and essential are
It's accidental
individual.
and essential dignity are like 2 different things.
It was real important.
Well, you think on it. Okay. Now, let's say we have the sun in Aquarius in the 10th house. This is in its detriment. It is aching sun. It has a problem. It's a bleeding heart. So you know it's going to give everything away it ever gets, for one thing, because it wants to show the world that it cares. So the sun here is really not good for achieving a lot of dignity. Although the sun says it would achieve some dignity, because it's in its detriment, it means only some dignity. Because the sun is always dignity. So we have here a powerful sun in Aquarius, but it's like some radio announcers I know. They're famous throughout the world, but they can't get beyond a certain level of fame. Everybody likes their stuff, but they only pull so many listeners in each time they're on the show or whatever they do. It seems to be a limit. They just can't pass that point past now. Okay. Now, so we know this is bad news item. However, let's say, just because we're brilliant, that Saturn, it too is in Aquarius. Is it not in its own sign?
Yes.
Does that not make it favorable?
Yes.
Now, Saturn hates to give you anything. But because the sun needs something, and the Saturn's in its own sign, it may give that person a higher level of dignity. Not the greatest. They're not going to be king. This is not going to be the king of the country. But they may be one of the archdukes.
Responsibility.
But they will have the responsibility of office to some degree. Especially if we can add now a trine or a sextile to it, wouldn't it?
Well, they're not even conjoining, though. They don't have to conjoin.
Don't have to, in the
to
same
get-
sign, just
being in
same
the same
sign.
sign, okay.
Yeah. They were conjoined to be a little bit tighter,
Mhm.
but the same sign tells you that there's something about this person you're going to like and something about him you just can't stand.
Mm.
But the honor will be there. I have a student up there that has this point in her chart, and she dresses horribly, and she won't comb her hair.
It's not me, is it?
What are you talking about?
Another person
Oh,
up there.
okay, all right.
Always
Always
asks
the
for a
other one.
ride, always needs to be somewhere, always has to have somebody else do something with her. She will always ask the most questions and just take the class by control many of the times, okay? She will always ask me for a discount.
For what?
A discount. I know it's that much, but I really don't have much. And I really love the class. And if you don't, no. You're getting good information. I can't do that because everybody else is doing what they're doing. Let's play fair for everybody. Okay? So she comes every other week. So she has some dignity. but she's hard to like. She's just hard to like because of the way she does things. But she has dignity. She shows up, and she gets her classes, and does what she has to, and then she asks about last week's class. I can't talk about that. I mean, it's amazing. This is it. You can see the Sun and the Saturn are all kind of working that way. Now, because the Sun is closer to the angle, you're going to see a little more Sun than you do Saturn. So you're going to get a little bit more strength out of that solar position than you will the Saturn position. If it were the other way around, then you will see a little bit more of the Saturn position than you would the Sun position, because it's closer to the angle. Okay.
So would that would be better than if Saturn were, because it's in its own sign.
Now we're looking at a little bit more of an organized person, aren't we?
Okay.
Now
All
this
right.
person is willing to share, probably make a great worker for helping people, being in organizations that make sure that people are giving good distribution, go abroad and get money for the kids. That's the kind of thing you'd be looking at because of the fact that it's such a strong position. So that Saturn would show a better deal of dignity. It would show a stronger sense of organization. And you would like the Sun, but again, there's a ceiling here because it's in its fall. Every planet will give you this pristine argument, but when it goes into its detriment or fall, not as much. Not as much. Saturn, right now, is very powerful. It's in its exaltation in Libra. Okay, wonderful. Mars, the ruler of somebody's sixth house, is retrograde, so it's weak. The Sun's in Aquarius, the vitality, so it's weak. So the stronger Saturn and the two vitality planets weak, is the person sick? Yeah. Especially if Mars or the Sun rules the sixth house, or even Saturn, because Saturn promises bad news.
So we know this about the person. Their Sun is in Aquarius. I mean, say this is my chart, and the Sun is in Aquarius, and I see that, and I see that maybe I'm not real likable. So so I mitigate that. Well, I don't. You probably don't want to.
Well, what you need to do is you're going to have to find somebody who would have a friendly chart to that. Trines and sextiles.
Oh.
They then, in turn, would probably buffer part of the negativity. So the friendship here might have a lot to say about what's going on by sign and planet. What is the most famous conjunction in astrology?
New moon.
A new moon. So anytime you see any conjunction in the chart, you want to see how the moon plays a part of that.
Oh,
Because
how
the
it
moon, yes, because the moon and the Sun are the two most, they're the king and queen of your chart. All the other planets listen to these two planets right here.
So you look to see how they are
That's
interacting with the
How they
with the
interact,
king
and how do they interact
with
with
the
that?
king and the queen.
With the king and the queen, because that is who you are, the king and
And
queen.
if there's no aspect, then you're not.
You're all powerful, all ego, and you're all needy. That's what you're doing in this life. If you don't think so, look again, because this is what we're doing. You can all say, I'm a very nice guy, and I really like to give my fortune away because I'm philanthropic. But in order to get that philanthropic fortune to give away in the first place, I had to do two things. Steal it. So out of the circumstances, I had to satisfy those two positions. So everything in your chart balances around these two guys. These guys will augment the Sun and the Moon. That is the most important thing you can think about in a natal chart. Whatever the Sun and the Moon are doing is who you are, your ego and your moon. Now, when I gave this lecture last week up north, I so dignified two people because they had a lot of sixth house planets. And I got up and walked out, and I told them, see you next week. What are you going to do? But nobody wants to hear the side for some reason. But this is really where we start. What is the basic concepts? Whatever Jupiter stands for, so does Pisces and Sagittarius.
I was confused.
Whatever Venus stands for, so does Taurus and Libra.
Yeah.
Whatever Saturn stands for, so does Capricorn and Aquarius. Whatever Mars stands for, so does Aries and Scorpio. And they will always take the flavor, the sign will always take the flavor of the dignity of the planet. So if the planet is in detriment, if Mars is in Libra, then Libra, for those of you who will, if Mars is sitting there, then Venus hates Mars. Absolutely hates it. But also, Mars is bringing to Libra the party of Aries, aggression, and Scorpio, depression. So out of the two things that bring it in is not too inimical to the idea of a nice, wonderful, balanced run. Everything is roses, Libra. That's what they're all about. But as soon as you put Mars here, you might as well throw a party and have a bivouac at the same time, because all the Marines come storming through your black tie affair is going to screw it all up. That's what Mars and Libra is about. And so it's not very happy here. But there's some activity that gets done, but not a lot. It's in detriment. People with Mars and Libra generally have a lot of projects that really like to get to someday. Just don't manage it. Somehow they sometimes will manage, but not always. So these are how you start working these. Now, this is what you do with these planets. You start from the very basic, pristine point. You then build on it. You give us an accidental and then essential dignity. And now can I add some aspects to this to see who is helping who? Because aspects help. Even squares, they help you. It means you got to argue it a bit, but you come out on top of the game and in a better position.